traditional marketing to me doesn't exist anymore. You have to evolve or you die. Being able to work with people like you, Bill, and your team has allowed my team to focus on what they're good at. So it's been a huge benefit to me personally because I don't really have to be the guy that comes up with all the marketing ideas. Now, one of the things I will say is you want to make sure that you find somebody who understands your industry. I think the quality of the content we've put out in the past year is 100 times better than what we've done in the past. You know, we're doing things now more like video content, webinars, we're doing interviews, we're positioning some of our people as thought leaders in the industry. And this was stuff we never did before. We found we were spending probably 90% too much and not getting a return. Mostly because we weren't educated in the subject. We decided we were gonna go out and look for a fractional CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. And Mesh, your agency, was one of the last we interviewed. You and your approach were radically different than what we saw from some of the other marketing agencies. What we heard from them were pretty much run-of-the-mill, what I would call textbook answers. And you were completely different. You know, you asked questions, you challenged us on things, you made us uncomfortable in some of the questions that you asked, but when we got off the call, you know, I immediately knew that Mesh, I thought, was the right company for us.
All right, Pete, thanks for hopping on with me today. Do me a favor for the people, you know, listening and watching. Give me the 60-second background on you. Tell me a little bit of your story.
My name is Pete Tortorelli. The name of the company is Omni International. We are a global leader in homogenizers and sample disruption technology. And I've been with the business for a number of years. Started out as a standalone business. We were acquired by PerkinElmer in 2020, and we're part of the Revvity divestiture in 2022. So now we are known as Revvity Omni.
You had an interesting experience during that time as well. You want to tell me a little bit about that?
In 2020, before acquisition, we had a growth plan. The company was doing well. And in March of 2020, this little thing called COVID hit. And we found out pretty quickly that if you weren't in the business of making personal protection gear or something to do with a COVID test or a vaccine, that your business kind of fizzled out and disappeared overnight. So we were one of the companies that was negatively impacted by the COVID mystique, shall we say. So company is doing well. We hit a point, probably April timeframe, where we saw over half our business just cease to exist. No one was buying. Obviously, most labs are shut down. The only labs that are open are testing labs or labs that are ramping up to test. And we saw an over 50% reduction in our business. So not a good time in hindsight to look back on what we went through. There was 3 or 4 months where it was very difficult for us to operate. And so we have an internal lab here. We have a team of scientists. And one of the things that we really talked about was, hey guys, we've got to get into some type of testing or some type of diagnostic in order to keep ourselves alive. So the business literally had to transform from being a company that did application research and science on homogenizing day-to-day products in a life science and diagnostic lab to becoming a startup. Where we had to hit the ground floor and figure out how we were going to get into this new industry of SARS-CoV-2 testing. And what we found was that we knew we had a device that was better than anybody else's on the market from a performance point of view. We just didn't know how that would fit into the application of testing. And as you recall, when COVID tests came out, they were typically a nasal pharyngeal swab, right? Where they would put the swab in your nose and twist it around. And we knew that there was a benefit in saliva testing, but there were really no saliva tests in the market at that point. And so what we did was we got involved with some of the local government facilities here in the state of Georgia, partnered with GEMA, Georgia Emergency Management Association, and Georgia Tech through the Georgia Tech Research Institute to put a bead mill, our bead mill, the Bead Eruptor Elite, on the front end of a unsuccessful COVID workflow that GEMA had built. And when I say unsuccessful, it was taking saliva tests, right? Because they needed a rapid, think about universities, right? And all these kids going to school, and they needed a rapid test for these kids, and a nasal pharyngeal swab was not something people looked forward to. So they had this saliva test that they thought could work, but because of the viscosity, I don't want to get too into saliva, but they were unable to process successfully from sample to sample. And so what we did was we theorized putting our bead mill on the front end of this test would allow them to make a uniform sample to ensure testing downstream could be done repeatably, and we were successful in that. So long story short, really literally overnight, we went from losing more than half of our business to gaining access to a testing market that tripled our business overnight. And it was because we weren't passive during this whole thing. We could have just folded up our tent and said, we're not going to be able to stay in business, or we're going to have to lay off 90% of the staff or whatever. We didn't do that. We got together and we challenged each other and said, we're going to get involved in this. We're going to keep this company afloat. We're going to keep things going, and we're going to find a way to be relevant. And I'm happy to say we did that.
Yeah, that's a pretty impressive and credible story. I think it speaks to your resilience as a business and a business leader. So I appreciate you sharing that. So that is pre us working together. So fast forward a couple of years. It's been, for people listening or watching, you and I have been working together over a year, probably a year and a half. Let's time travel a little bit, sort of right before you brought us in. Tell me a little bit about what sort of initiated that process for you. What led you to start looking for some help?
We had been acquired, as I said, by PerkinElmer and then Revvity. And even though we had been acquired, the full integration that happens when a small company is acquired by a larger company didn't happen here because of the uniqueness of the business model we have. And so, and even to this day, 4 years after acquisition, we still have our own P&L. We still have our own unique customers, and we still operate in our facility here in the Atlanta area almost as a standalone business. So we do a lot of collaborating with Revvity, and we're part of the Revvity system, wholly owned by Revvity, but we have a unique business model. And so from a marketing point of view, in that business model, we looked at what we were getting as far as return on investment in our marketing dollar spend versus what we saw in some of the familial business units that are part of Revvity, right? So we went from having this little island of Omni to being part of the bigger company and seeing what they were doing from a marketing perspective and where they were successful and where they weren't successful. And so we took a deep dive into what we were doing and found we were spending a ton of money on things like outreach, Google AdWords, SEO, and mostly because we weren't educated in the subject, we found we were spending probably 90% too much and not getting a return. The other thing is that we had and still have talent in the building who probably wasn't well versed in this. And I'll go back to the small company mantra that I use, which is when you're in a small business, maybe let's say sub 10 million, and you hit that mid-market point, a lot of things need to change. The outlook on how you run the business, maybe some of the talent within the business, things or people that you had at, say, a $5 million business don't necessarily work. They don't scale at 20 or 25 million. So we had these growing pains. And we knew we were putting a lot of money into marketing, but we also knew we were probably not getting a sufficient return on our investment. And so we decided we were going to go out and look for a fractional CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. And I belong to an organization called Vistage, which has 22,000 members throughout the United States. And they have these boards where you can post that you are looking for something. And so I put up a message on the boards and got multiple responses, probably 15 to 20 marketing agencies that wanted to bid for our business. And we interviewed every one of them. And Mesh, your agency, was one of the last we interviewed. And I will say that you and your approach were radically different than what we saw from some of the other marketing agencies. What we heard were from them were pretty much run-of-the-mill, what I would call textbook answers as to how they were going to examine our marketing, or how they were going to help us, or how they were going to get involved. And you were completely different. You asked questions, you challenged us on things, you made us uncomfortable in some of the questions that you asked. But when we got off the call, I immediately knew that, Mesh, I thought, was the right company for us. And so we gave it a shot, and here we are, a year and a half later, and I'm happy with the results.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Assuming that after a year and a half, the ROI numbers make sense. What are some of the specific things that you appreciate about working together with us?
The first thing is it's a partnership. We have discussions frequently. We have a weekly meeting for an hour, sometimes shorter, sometimes longer. But we have mutual goals, right, that we're bought into. And so this isn't just, me or my staff telling you and your team, this is what we want you to do, go do it. And the flip side of that isn't you coming to us saying, hey, this is what we're going to do. Now you guys need to provide us with the materials to do it. It's a collaboration. It's a partnership. And that's very much appreciated. The other thing is that, we talked about what are the main goals, right? We reset probably every 3 to 6 months. And the biggest goal we've always had here is leads, right? I mean, to me, marketing is about not just brand recognition, but leads. And this business, we sell products that are ubiquitous to labs, right? So an average sale is pretty small. To hit a big revenue target, you need a very robust lead pipeline. And I think Mesh has been very good in being flexible with how we spend the marketing dollars and what we bring in talent-wise, collaboration-wise, to get us to hit that lead goal. Those are the two things that really stand out that I think set Mesh apart from all of the other marketing firms that we engaged with, and even how we ran marketing here pre-Mesh.
We have I think a fairly unique operating model. I think a lot of companies talk about lead generation and they say, well, we're just focused on lead generation, but then they just simply continue to do the same tactics even when they're not performing. So then when maybe running Google ads, when it's not performing, just continue to kind of churn at it, hoping that, changing a few keywords or, maybe tweaking a landing page, when essentially the lead gen framework is broken. And not taking a step back and saying, okay, maybe Google AdWords isn't the place we need to be focusing. Maybe SEO isn't the thing that makes the difference. And one thing I think about our model is that we put that objective in front of us and then we figure out how to get there. We don't figure out how to, we don't just apply what we do with a package. We don't sell you on a blog and a couple of social media posts and an email blast. It truly is figuring out what is going to accelerate lead generation to the point where we experiment with a lot of kind of new novel technologies just to see, to experiment and see what works.
To add to that, I think it's important that when you have a business initiative, you have KPIs, right? You measure what you're doing. And 2 years ago, we couldn't measure anything, right? I couldn't tell you how well we were doing on SEO. I couldn't tell you, what we were getting for a return on the dollars spent. And now we have a dashboard. We understand more about our marketing automation software. We can track on a daily basis who's going to the website, see the hits, in some cases see who these people are. I feel like we get better quality leads because the content of the outreach isn't just a cold email and a cloud of dust. It's content developed for scientists that is relevant to their daily lives, right? So we have a tagline here that says "Great science starts here" at Omni, and that means that no matter what research you're doing, if you're starting with solid tissue, it has to start with superior performance on the front end of sample prep, meaning the homogenization or the sample dissociation step has to be perfect every time, or you'll have garbage results downstream. And it's the same way with marketing, right? I mean, we have to make sure that what we're doing for the spend that we have, which by the way, I think is about a third of what we were spending total budget before, and getting better results. So, we need to make sure that we're spending judiciously, we're marketing wisely, and we're tracking what we do. And one of the things that I really appreciate about the relationship with you, Bill, is that if something doesn't work, we change it. We don't know everything, right? We know enough, I think, at times to be dangerous, and then we learn new things and say, hey, this performed pretty well. Let's follow that path. We're doing things now more like video content. We didn't do enough of that in the past. We're doing webinars. We're doing interviews. We're positioning some of our people as thought leaders in the industry, and this was stuff we never did before. So I feel like we're in a really good spot.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So one of the things that I've developed over probably the last 5 or 6 years is this fractional CMO approach to things. And that is where my focus is really building a bridge between your business strategy and vision and what actually happens with boots on the ground marketing. So that entire flow. So you've worked with, marketing before. Talk a little bit about how that works for you and what you get out of that as the business leader.
Running a full marketing department, you need somebody to run marketing. So whether that's a marketing manager or marketing director, you need content writers, you need a web developer, you need someone to maintain the website, trade shows, coordination, stuff like that. And so it's an expensive endeavor. And in an environment where, you really are needing to watch spend, and you have a corporate goal of, X% profit, headcount is at a premium, right? I mean, you don't have the ability to keep all the headcount that you would like to have if you were controlling your own destiny, so to speak. And I think that's a big problem right now. I mean, it's for many companies, right? So when you can't afford to have a stable full of marketing talent, what do? I mean, you look on the outside and you look for companies that can complement, where you're weak. And when we got into this and started looking for going the fractional CMO route, we didn't really know what we wanted. We didn't really have a list. We just wanted somebody to look at what we were doing and tell us what was right and what could be done better. And we got much more out of that, right? I mean, it's allowed us to basically seriously reduce our in-house marketing spend per head count, and refocus that the precious funds we have, the trimmed funds in the budget to be put to work where it really matters. So if we need help with the website, if we need help with content writing, if we need help with outreach or whatever it would be, other than maybe trade show stuff, because we still do that internally, then you bring in the skills, right? So the CMO approach, the fractional CMO approach, is you bring in what you need on a part-time basis, we deploy it, and then we're good to go. And then try to automate that as much as you can. So the other thing that it brings in is, I think, thought leader, right? Because inside the business unit, we're busy on a daily basis, and we don't necessarily have the outreach into other companies or other strategies that are going on. Some of the cutting edge stuff that's happening. We don't have time to do that research, and I see the fractional CMO route, especially with Mesh, where you guys are bringing in new ideas, you're bringing in new technology, new ways of doing things that we never would have thought of before, because we never had that outlet. We never had the time to do that. So to me, it's a very cost-effective way of enhancing your marketing outreach.
I agree. And I think that that's one of the things that I really enjoy out of the business. I like working with, business leaders like you and building out a strategy. So understanding what your goals are for the business.
Right.
I think you downplay it and oversimplify it and just say, we just need leads. But I think that as a business, and a lot of businesses in the space face a lot of obstacles and challenges in growing a business in the environment that we've been in for 5 years now. It's been a roller coaster.
Right.
So I think you downplay sort of your expectation there, but I really think that in working through the strategy, we look at the strategy, I think, deeply enough, and then work to act on it quickly. So we're not spending 6 months away, heads down, figuring things out, and by that time 2 cycles of tech have gone by us. It's a matter of, and it's not all us. You bring a number of ideas to the table in every meeting. You say, well, I saw this company doing this over here, I think we should do that as well. And then we look at that collectively, critically, and we say, okay, does that make sense for us as a brand? And then if so, how do we make that our own? We're not just copying what else is out there. How do we leverage that to grow? And that's always what's right in our sights, is that goal.
This has also freed me up, right? Where rather than managing a team here, and I'm not a marketing guy, rather than managing a team here and trying to understand all of the things that we're doing and tracking the spend and budgeting for all of the stuff, the outsourcing of the whole, well, I wouldn't say outsourcing marketing, because we really haven't outsourced marketing, but the fractional approach and working with you has allowed me to free up some of my time to do things that I need to do to look at some of the cutting edge stuff that other people are doing or other industries are doing, whether it be AI or web development of leads, or a competitive advantage that we might have over a competitor, or getting more involved in application note writing with the science team here. So it's been a huge benefit to me personally, because I don't really have to be the guy that comes up with all the marketing ideas. And when you're not a marketing person and you put someone like me in that position, I'm probably going to make some mistakes. So I think working with you and your team has helped us minimize waste and the spend and really bad ideas we would have chased had we not had the relationship with you.
One of the things that I do like to do with my clients is teach. Marketing shouldn't be a black box. I think that people should understand it and leverage it. It's kind of like financial literacy. We should all have it. Right. And I understand we can't all learn everything, but I do try to share that when I can, so that the team who's working at Omni internally on marketing. They understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, the strategy behind it, and so they can go off and be independent and grow here and be successful. And they're not tethered to us. There's no, well, as you know, as soon as we stop paying the invoice, well, we're dead in the water. The team knows a lot of the work now, and they're able to perform that. And I think, you know, part of how we continue this is we keep trying to find ways to drive more leads and add more value to the relationship. Because I mean, I don't know about other people in the space, but you know, a lot of us are continuously learning as well. Things are changing very quickly, and I try to stay plugged into it and open to, you know, what worked yesterday isn't going to work today. Like SEO. I mean, companies doing traditional SEO and that's their channel, they're dead in the water today. And so we looked at, even in the beginning, I think probably about a year ago, we said we have to figure out another channel for us because we're not going to have that channel for too much longer.
Right.
And within 6 months, it's, you know, it's changed dramatically.
Well, we're competing with some big companies, right? And they're spending a lot of money in SEO. So, I mean, what are we going to do? Outspend them? Probably not. So you're right. We need to look for different avenues and different methods. You know, the big thing that I think I'd like to say that I really haven't said yet is that being able to work with people like you, Bill, and your team has allowed my team to focus on what they're good at, right? Mm-hmm. So what we're good at is finding solutions for customers in sample prep. We're not good at marketing, but we're learning, right? We're learning how to apply what we're good at into a message that pleases customers or piques their interest. And we weren't doing that before. I think the quality of the content we've put out in the past year is 100 times better than what we've done in the past. And so from that aspect, I mean, I look at what we're doing versus even, you know, our parent company. We're doing some things that they're not doing. And I look at our competitors, because we track our competitors, and they're not doing any of it. So it's good. I mean, I feel like from a top-down aspect, we have a pretty good approach, and I feel great about where we are. I feel great about how we're reaching the market and the return we're getting for the work that we're putting in.
I appreciate that. I think that the DNA of Omni is the company puts, you know, you put your customer at the center of everything. You know, from, you know, once you sell a product and it's on site, you don't just walk away. You're there to support them at every step of the way and make sure that everything works the way they need it to do. And something changes, you know, help change with them. And I you know, not every company does that. And what I think has been really successful, without giving away the full strategy, is just treating marketing like that. Bring that mentality and that approach to your customer as the center of the universe. Bring that, you know, forward and to bear in marketing. And it really makes a big difference. And I think a lot of companies don't think about it that way. They make a widget, the widget solves a problem, and then they just, you know, they tell people that, and they miss the entire customer side of the relationship and marketing.
And traditional marketing, to me, doesn't exist anymore. I mean,
Right.
you have to evolve or you die. And every year in this industry, there's a new challenge. You know, 4 years ago it was COVID. Now it's tariffs and budget cuts and things like that. So you have to be nimble. You have to be responsive to what the market is looking for, but you have to, I guess, gather all your resources. Right. I look at this like we're in a war, right? And we're fighting battles on multiple fronts, and you don't win a war in one battle, typically.
Yep.
So we look at every battle with the resources that we have, and we say, how can we deploy them the best for maximum effect? And this arrangement that we have with Mesh has enabled us to do that from a marketing perspective. And It's made us better from a messaging perspective. It's made us better from a sales perspective. I mean, we've gone from salespeople typically telling us that they don't have enough leads to follow up to my team internal chasing our salespeople. Hey, you guys need to follow up these leads because they've gone up exponentially. So I don't want to harp on just leads, but I mean that's really in this business where we have a very small average dollar sale. We have to make a lot of sales to hit a revenue number, which means we need a lot of leads. So it's worked for us, and I'm happy with how it's evolved and where we are. And I think that there are probably a half a dozen people in this business besides me who would say the same thing. They've developed. I've got application scientists who are contributing to marketing. That's not your typical business model. We have business managers who are involved in it. We have engineers involved in it. So it's all hands on deck here. Everybody feels like they have skin in the game. They have a responsibility to our customers, and that's really the culture here. And it's your business fits our business from a culture perspective, and that's I think why we click so well.
If you had to pass along maybe one kind of key parting thought to another person in your position, so business leader, founder, CEO, who is really struggling, probably doing marketing, but it's not clicking. You're just not seeing the results. What would you say to that?
Well, if you're small to small mid market, you probably don't have a team internally. So I mean, I know dozens of business leaders who are in the same situation where they want to have more of an outreach and marketing. They just don't know how to do it, and they don't have the people or the budget to do it. I think if you have to be creative, and you have to look at what's existing out there that's going to give you a competitive edge at a reasonable price, and you have to be able to measure the return. And I think if you're a business leader and you're running a small business and you're putting a name on every dollar, then this is a really great option for you to look at rather than building out an entire marketing department. Look at a CMO model, fractional CMO model, and see if it works for you. Now, one of the things I will say is you want to make sure that you find somebody who understands your industry. If you're in automobiles, you probably don't want to work with a life science person, right? But you understand our industry, and so your niche is our niche, and I would encourage other business leaders to look for that. And organizations, by the way, like Vistage are great for that in connecting networks. So I would, if I could say to small business leaders out there, don't give up hope. Do some research, see what it's like to work with fractional CMOs. And if you're in the same industry as us, I'd encourage you to talk to people like Mesh. It's been a game changer for us.
Well, thank you, Pete. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
It's been a great talk, and I'll see you on the other side.